Hey, this is Alex Vasco with All For Him Racing Videos, and you're listening to Cash on the Hood podcast. When you're done listening, please go over to YouTube and check out all the number 4 Him Racing videos for all your derby action needs.
Hey yo, it's Cash on the Hood. It's your guy Jason Sauer. I appreciate you so much for listening. And if you're coming in from that last episode 2, we got a fun episode 3. But before all that, we're going to get to the business. Please like, share, subscribe. I can't do it without you guys. We are filming in my home studio here in Pittsburgh. We got Brian Cottington of the Cinema Psychos podcast, 300 plus episodes, plus Libsyn, promoter, YouTube, consultant. This guy is the man. So he brought us the new OBS bot, OpsBot camera system that we are filming today here at the home studio. So salute to them for hooking us up with that. And so if you're watching on YouTube, it's because of the OpsBot and it's tracking cool stuff it's got going on there. And again, All For Him Racing, salute to you and Kelly O's for supporting the Most Wanted Fine Art class. All right, so what I've told you about is the Pittsburgh Art Car at the Houston Art Car Parade. And now I'm going to tell you today what it feels like to what I assume catch a touchdown pass at Heinz Field for the home team. Or at least in my brain it is. So an equivalent. So we are in the 250,000 people. They're not all in one spot because they can't all jam in one spot. But I am in between two overpasses. I'm broke down. There's people on the overpass. There's people around me. People are watching me make a cash deal on a car with a dude with a big wad of cash. And I know that it's a Chrysler, and I know that we put the hot starter in it, and we put the hot ignitions in it, and I know it's going to go. But I'm worried about the transmission. I'm like, how far is it going to go? Because what I've done is I burn out the pump, and I burn out the bands and the transmission, and this car does not want to go. But it's smoking. I'm down to just Brian, his daughter, his wife, cousin Evan, and Nina in the car. And I just driven through downtown. People are just screaming for the car every time I rev it up, just screaming. So I've sent this car to the moon every time. I'm just getting more and more aggressive with the revving of the car because every time I go harder and harder, the more the crowd screams. So I'm like, oh my God, they're loving it. They're loving the art car. They're loving my art. I'm having the best artistic moment of my entire life. I cannot believe it's actually happening. This is so cool. It's so great. I'm like, all right. I'm like, I look at my wife. She doesn't want to walk. She's like, I can't do anymore. Just get this car to that truck and trailer. Please. I'm done. I'm done. I'm looking at Brian. Brian, bless his heart, is a big man. And I could tell Brian is like, dude, it'll make it to the truck and trailer, right? I'm like, I hope, friends. I love you guys. Evan's in the car just screaming, we crash cars. He's still my biggest cheerleader, just out there, just hyping up the crowd, you know? I'm like, all right. I jump in the car, I turn, and I hit the key. And when I hit the key, oh my God, the whole crowd, I had to not realize that all eyes were on me for the last 3 to 4 or 5 minutes, and I was the only thing that they were watching. And when that car moved 30 feet, the enormous, outrageous, completely mind-blowing, life-altering, life-fulfilling moment happened to me where they just screamed. And I knew this car was not going to make it the 200 yards I wanted it to make. I put it in low 1, and I said, everything in the art gods, I saw a spot 100 yards ahead where I could crash land this car and where I could get the truck and trailer and just walk the rest of the parade. I'm like, Sauer, do it. I put it in low 1. I don't think it mattered. I stood on the gas, and that car only moved about, I don't know, 30 feet. but it was screaming, and I managed to get that car to limp that full 100 yards while the crowd absolutely went bonkers, just nuts, because the car, I don't know what they thought. They were definitely watching it melt to the ground. When I came to an explosive stop, transmission fluid boiled out all over the ground. I ended up having to clean it up. It was bad. But, like, huge pile of smoke, like, just screamed the car to a stop. It was so Most Wanted. It was so on brand. It was so breaking down in a parade that has 250,000 people, 100% Jason Sauer, 100% my entire Derby career summed up in the last 100 yards. But for once, they're cheering for me, and they loved it. They loved it. I melted that car down. Dude, it felt so good to know that we can make it the 100 yards if I just stomped on it. And it was so much fun. I don't know if my family was embarrassed or loved it, but it was an emotional, absolute episode. All right. So people are screaming, slapping me on the back when I get out of the car. They're just yelling around the car. Everyone's getting their picture taken with it. Videos are being shot. It's just smoking in the street. Just smoking. The dude behind me in that mechanical Phoenix is just loving it. He's like, hell yeah. He watched me burn down that car in front of him. And everybody in the parade's like, so I was the guy at the parking lot party. They loved it. It was so good. Okay. Let's move on to the cops part of the story. All right, so I lose Brian. Luckily, Brian got a hotel room on the parade route with his family the night before. And he's like, hey, thanks for dropping me off. I'm like, okay. So Nina's like, I can't walk. Go get the truck and trailer. I'll just suffer here in the car. And I'm like, oh, dear, I knew this was going to happen. So I got Evan with me. He's 8 years old. And we are walking the last mile and a half of the parade. Brisk walking, waving to people like, hey. Yeah. So we get to the truck and trailer. And just as I turn the key, I get the phone call from Nina. And it's upsetting. She's like, the cops are towing the car. I'm throwing my body in front of the street. Like, they're towing it to the impound. If you're not here in 10 minutes, they're taking me to jail, and they're taking the car to the impound. I'm like, oh my God, what has happened? I was only gone for 1 mile walk. It was a brisk 1 mile walk. What has happened to the car? The parade is still going on. What has happened? So I put it in GPS. She drops a pin. I'm like, oh my God, it says like 10 minutes away. I'm in truck and trailer. And remember my beginning of the day where I was like, I was worried about the traffic because the freeway was closed and downtown was closed. So I gridlocked about six blocks of traffic. I gridlock it all up, truck and trailer. I get there 9 minutes and 45 seconds. My smoking car is still sitting they've towed it to a side street. The cops open up the barricades. I get the car, it ramps out, everything. Car fires right up as I knew the Chrysler would. It drove right on the trailer as I knew the Chrysler would. Strap it down. I show the cops my backing up skills, in and out. Nina's just looking at me, just like, I'm like, there's a young man in the back seat. Just keep all those emotions inside until we get to our next location. So I hear from her how, everybody's really worried that, that she had broke down, and they had led her to believe that like it was going to, and like she was upset in the moment that, the police were going to take my car away, and that, we were going to be stranded with another crazy bill, like buying a tire again. Like now we have to pay an impound fee. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, hold on just a second. I'll be right there. Like, so it was an uncomfortable situation. We made quick, got out of it. Thank goodness. Whew. All right. Now I can decompress a little, but I get back to the Airbnb. I drop everybody off to go to the pool, but it's in this new development area of town in Houston, and it's brand new pavement, and the ditches are really deep, and it's only 1 lane wide, so I have nowhere to go with the truck and trailer. So I'm committing to the nighttime parade, and I've known about the nighttime parade for years. So I'm like, all right, let's do this. So I drop the truck and trailer, or car and trailer off at the Orange Show compound. I have to be across town at the Restaurant Depot parking lot with my truck. And what I have is the bin of lights from doing the New Year's Eve parade here in Pittsburgh. And the end of this show is where, end of the story is where everybody clowns me in Houston. But whatever. It was a good clowning. All right, so I've known about this parade of lights. So if you have lights on your art car, they ask you to do this nighttime parade. It's basically the after hours. It's held by Hack, Houston Art Car Club. So I'm like, my mind is swirling. I just broke down in the art car parade. I just was dropped off my family. They're like, we're done. Good luck. Enjoy the nighttime parade by yourself. I'm like, all right. This is why I brought 2 art cars, is because I want to do this nighttime thing. So I get to the rally spot. We leave at 8:30. I show up at 8:15. I have 15 minutes to figure out how to put some lights on this truck so I can be part of this parade. And there's already like 150 cars in the parking lot. It is awesome. The stereos in these cars they're stadium level. Like somebody's playing The Purge just over and over again. You know that Purge noise that you hear at Dead Man shows over and over again. It's so cool. So just like regular sour fashion, the 4 sets, I grab the lights. The first 4 sets don't work. So I'm just plugging them into my truck. I have an inverter in the truck. So I find the ball of lights that Tommy made, and I just hang them off the tailgate. I hang all lights just looking all disheveled. I just turn the marker lights on the truck. Parade's ready to go. I've never been a part of a takeover. All right. So if anybody's ever heard of a takeover, it's when people like block the stop signs, block the red lights, and like the whole crowd of people. Now in other car takeovers, people are usually doing donuts in the intersection, things that are a little more wild. We ended up doing 4 giant laps in the Restaurant Depot parking lot, and then we start the takeover of Houston. Oh my gosh. We drove down so many different bar districts and just so many people on the sidewalks and at outdoor patios just screaming for the art cars. I'm having so much fun, but I'm by myself at this point, so I set the GPS. I'm like, I'm done. You guys wore me out. I'm emotionally done. I drove to Texas. We did all this. Then I go and I set GPS for home. I do a U-turn, and just as I do a U-turn, I pull behind the Grand Marshal of the parade. I'm like, oh, how about this? I'm like, well, I'll just follow the Grand Marshal, which happens to be a truck and trailer with a karaoke machine and like a whole crowd of people just partying on this truck and trailer. So I follow them, and then they end up at the moment. Again, I want everybody to experience this. We end up taking over, I don't know how to call it better, but it's called a clover leaf, like in a highway intersection. And so we are constantly exiting. So imagine driving under the underpass, seeing all your art car friends driving above you. And if you look to your left, you see all your art car friends exiting, on-ramping. As you're on-ramping, exiting, coming back up onto that overpass, back under the underpass, back over the underpass. 4 times around, I finally did it. This is what everything I've been waiting for was these big moments in my life. And I've been wanting to do this overpass, underpass, and it's so cool. And so I guess from everyone else's perspective, my truck had a bed of Christmas lights that I just plugged in. That was a ball of Christmas lights because I'd just given up at this point. So they could see into the bed of my truck again from the overpass. I did not realize how much overpasses were going to be a part of my artistic life in Houston. All right, so I'm finally dizzy. I'm like, I'm done. Send me home. And just as that moment, the truck and trailer exits, and they drive to a parking lot with the skyline of Houston, boom, right there. So gorgeous. And we take over the parking lot, and it's so cool. what a great way to end my entire absolute time in Houston. I get out of the car. Everyone's like, nice light display, pal. I'm like, hey, I had 15 minutes. I heard you had to have lights to be a part of this parade. There's a truck in the parking lot that had like fire, and they're just blowing up big balls of fire right out of a Suburban. It was awesome. And I shook hands with everybody, thanked everybody, and it was really cool. Never been part of a takeover where the intersections were closed. Never had a cruising special like that. Never had people cheering on the cars. Like, I'm used to making friends in parking lots, but I never have been to an environment where it wasn't an event and we were the performers for the event. And so my goal was to go in 2027. I'm hoping to go as a sour milk truck with a bunch of mini bikes and my friends. That way they can all experience it. My goal was to put a cow head on the top of the milk truck with hydraulics on the milk truck. And so we're going to blow green bubbles out of the nose and mouth of that cow head. And when we raise the back end of the truck, the goal is that it looks like it's puking. So it's a sour milk. That's the goal. And then a bunch of mini bikes with milkmen on it and little green bottles of milk and baskets. Is our initial idea for 2027 when we would go back to the Houston Art Car Parade. So anybody else wants to join us, plan it. It's a lot of effort, but boy, is it a ton of fun. And I skipped over a whole bunch of other events that they do for you. Now, you're always on parade, so you're always with your car. It's always moving. It's pretty sweet weekend. And so, again, everybody, thank you so much for listening to my 3-part story of the Houston Art Car Parade. I'm sure I skipped over some things, but thank you for All For Him Racing. Thank you, Kelly O's Restaurant. Thank you, Brian, for Cinema Psychos, Libsyn, OBS Bot for the camera and filming me. Brian is always doing the work. He puts the video on YouTube for us. He types it all up, sends it to Libsyn. Libsyn puts it on there every 2 weeks as our platform host. So normally you see us at StudioME, but we're test driving some new stuff here, and we love it, and I appreciate Brian making his way across town to film us here. So again, thank you, everybody. Please like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. And my next guest, I believe, is J.A. Sauer Heating and Air Conditioning.